The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Everyone, we'll open the May 31st council meeting. I'll call it to order. Under presentations, we have none this evening. Adoption of the agenda. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, please? Thank you. Councillor Clark. Seconded by, thank you, Councillor Frank. All in favor? Carried. Next, could I have a motion, please, to adopt the minutes of the council meeting held on May 3rd? Councillor Broba, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Walliser. Any questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Under original communications, delegations, and petitions, first off, we have from MNP the audited financial statements presented by Giselle. Giselle Bourgois. Thank you, Giselle, for coming this evening, and please take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, thanks. I remember to press that little button. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. So yes, we have the financial statements as of December 31st. We'll be going over them in summary here. So I also just want to say that the audited statements express a clean, unqualified audit opinion. So congratulations on that. Lots of hard work went behind getting the numbers back into shape and being able to express a clean opinion. So congratulations. Going into the statement of financial position. So just to highlight a couple areas here. So your total financial assets this year are $14.2 million. That's up from the prior year. A couple things that are causing that increase. Cash itself did increase significantly by $1.3 million. Your taxes receivable did also increase by $600,000. A lot of that has to do with the impact of COVID, right? People aren't paying their taxes as quickly as they would have in the past. Liabilities, they're down $1.9 million, so that's always nice to see. In particular, your long-term debt is down $2.5 million. There was a new loan that was taken out at the beginning of the year of about $2 million. However, $5 million of debt was repaid in the current year. Your accounts payable is another area where we saw a large decrease. That decreased about $1.5 million to $2.2 million. Last year there was a various outstanding payables for capital projects that were in place that didn't exist at the end of this year. Your deferred revenue did increase to $5.1 million. A large portion of that has to do with your new coal transition funding that was received. Not fully expended, obviously, so that is deferred into the future years. Your non-financial assets, when we look at that, it's at $120 million altogether. It increased with regards to the tangible capital assets by $4.5 million, and there was various capital additions that were in place. Some of them included the landfill compactor, land purchase, police station expansion, and stuff like that. In the end, your accumulated surplus was $101 million, and that's up about $5 million from last year. When we look at the statement of operations, you can see that your revenue is pretty much comparable with last year overall. There were some fluctuations in between some of the categories. For example, land sales, the gains. You had a large land sale last year that didn't occur in the current year. Also in your conditional grants, that one increased $800,000. So there was some grants with regards to the Safe Restart And of course, part of the coal transitioning grant, that's part of that was recognized in the current year. When we look at your expenditures, they are at $2.3 million this year, so that's up about $650,000. Various areas saw increases and decreases with regards to that. General government saw a decrease of $590,000. Your transportation services also saw a decrease of $488,000. Last year, there was more repairs and maintenance, right? With COVID happening this year, there wasn't the opportunity for you guys to get out there and fix as many things as there was in the past. Recreation is another area that got hit pretty bad. Obviously, with the recreation centers and the curling and the rink and stuff like that, not being able to operate as they usually have, your costs associated with that also decreased. Going down into your provincial and federal conditional capital grants, that one did decrease by $852,000. So prior year, there was a lot of the Canada Builds grants that didn't occur in the same extent this year, but this year you did have another grant that you used for the police station. In the end, we have a surplus of just over $5 million, and your accumulated surplus at the end, as we've seen on the balance sheet, is $101,000. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Giselle. Any questions or comments from members of council? And Trudy, would you mind, I think someone wanted in, would you mind tossing the door open and letting them in? Well, maybe I was seeing things, maybe it was a ghost of...
I did hear that too, Roy, but no one's on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I guess you've done a great job, Giselle, you and your people. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. We don't have any questions this evening. Thank you so much for your presentation. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Not at this time, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for a great job. And you're more than welcome to stay. We have a long night. I don't know if we have cookies for later, but you're more than welcome to stay.
We have to accept that report.
Could we have a motion, please, to accept the report that Giselle just gave? Thank you, Councillor Frank, seconded by Councillor Walliser. Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next, under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have the pro-life benches presented by Bridget Bittman. Please, Bridget, come up to the mic and hit the button on and...
Good evening. I'm Bridget Bittman, and I've been put in the center of controversy over pro-life donating the Always Loved memorial benches City Council rejected last meeting. Thank you, Your Excellency, Mayor Roy Ledwick, for allowing us to defend this donation. First, I would like to apologize to anyone who felt judged or ostracized by a member of pro-life. Now the shoe is on my foot, and we are being negatively judged, and the bench donation is being politicized, and people are being polarized. Because we're facing discrimination, I'm first going to clear the name of pro-life. We are not a hate group. The job of organized pro-life is to educate and bring laws into place to protect the sanctity of human life. As a pro-lifer, we are to be prayerful and respectful. And the truth is, families, especially women, are hurt mentally and physically by abortion. Babies are terminated like medical waste, yet people want the freedom to decide what is right for them. Of course, this is a passionate but worthy debate. In the 52 years since Pierre Trudeau decriminalized abortion, Canada has been unsuccessful in any legislation to protect a preborn child at any stage. We stand with only China and North Korea with that claim to fame. His son is deepening that divide. Pro-life supports the North American constitutional right for life for all marginalized individuals, whether this be the preborn children, the sick, the handicapped, or the elderly. We believe that the cornerstone of any free, democratic, stable society is how the law treats the most vulnerable of its society. Canada gets a big fail in that department. The euthanasia or doctor-assisted suicide laws the Liberal government put in place in June of 2016 and expanded this spring to include children who are mature minors, that's without parental consent, by the way, and mental illness are the most permissive laws in the world. The #1 slogan for abortion is pro-choice. The ironic thing about that slogan is when you ask people why they had an abortion, the #1 response is, I felt I had no choice. We help the rape and the incest victims, the girls whose no wasn't respected, and those unable to care for a child. We fight for girls who are aborted solely because their parents didn't want a girl. We advertise every month and on our websites 1-800 numbers for women to call, girls to call who are in trouble, to give them choices. Before I was married, I faced an unplanned pregnancy. I chose life. Several of my friends over the years found themselves in that situation. No one regretted the decision to have the child, but those who aborted all had deep remorse. I didn't know my dad and his girlfriend had an abortion before he met and married my mom. I found out shortly before he died. He cried, and he said, "What if they don't let me in?" And I said, "Into what, Dad?" And he said, "Heaven." My dad had 10 children, and he worked hard to provide for us, and he cherished us. But he was tortured by the one child that he didn't. So I get why people don't want to be reminded. Richard's Vineyards offers retreats across North America to help people heal after an abortion emotionally, and no one should live with that pain and regret. So I'm going back to the memorial benches because we donated to the city those benches with the words, "always loved." Always loved, that should be the message. It should be our focus and not the messenger. We want to offer the memorial benches to people like my dad who needed healing, to couples who miscarried, had stillborn babies, premature babies, or babies who died of SIDS, to anyone who lost a child, whether through choice or not. Across Canada, there are 300 babies aborted every day. This bench is for all children who died too young. Pro-Life may have donated these neutral, respectful memorial benches, but we didn't add our name on purpose. We didn't want them politicized. Unfortunately, a few councillors stirred that pot, and the city parks manager, city manager, and mayor were super happy with the bench. They had approved them when we proposed the donation and before we had them manufactured. We spent close to $900 on these benches, discounted thanks to the owners of KRJ Manufacturing, Randy and Becky Frankie, because they said this is a very good cause and they supported it. Since all the publicity, 6 other citizens from Estevan actually came forward to me personally to ask if they could donate the same memorial bench in the city's parks areas that they enjoy going to because the message "always loved" on the bench touched them. Monica and Perry McKenzie, Monica came out with me tonight. They wanted to donate a bench because they had one baby that they lost through miscarriage, and they also had 4 grandchildren that they lost through miscarriage, and they wanted to donate a bench in memory of them. Lori Brignall wanted to donate a bench, a memorial bench, to the multiple miscarriages in their family. Doreen LeBlanc, in memory of all children lost, and same with Tim and Marla Scalapo. Walter and Marlene Charagello called and they wanted to donate a bench in honor of their premature grandbaby, Brody, who is fighting for his life right now in Regina Preemie Ward. The city's parks manager said that they had many benches to replace, and these lovely memorial benches would meet this need. The focus should be on the benches which only say, "always loved," with small feet and hearts. I want to ask how this is controversial. And this is not precedent setting. The city has many memorial benches in their parks. Hitchcock actually called me on the weekend they want one manufactured for out in Hitchcock for their new city park. For the last 20 years, the city of Estevan has given Pro-Life a proclamation to publish in the paper that April is Respect for Life Month. As far as taking sides, Council has supported non-conservative groups such as the Gay Pride Parade and flying their flag in front of City Hall. and installing always loved benches in the city of Estevan is a positive, affirmative action for all families and to support their losses. On behalf of the many pro-life members in Estevan and all who love the bench and its message, we would like to see Council overturn their decision to reject the benches. Benches which were already approved, manufactured, and picked up by the city in the beginning of April and only waiting for good weather for installation. I also ask Council to accept the 6 more that people want to donate. And I want to thank the generosity of those 6 aforementioned citizens of Estevan. The world needs healing now more than ever. It needs a place to relax, take a deep breath, and be supportive of families. Shouldn't everyone have the chance to be always loved and remembered?
Okay, thank you, Bridget. We'll open the floor. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Bridget.
Good evening.
I put the motion forward that we respectfully request pro-life to withdraw their offer. And the reason I did that is I thought it was somewhat divisive within the community. At times, I thought it was politically or a lobby that at this level that we were never elected to make a choice on that. Whether we felt that way or not, it's not a civic issue, and I didn't think that we needed to put ourselves into that debate. So that never passed, but we did. We had open discussion, and everybody respectfully talked about the issue, had another motion, and it never passed, and then a third motion. That was much the same as the first, except they wanted to do a policy, and I thought that we handled it very well, and I wish you'd listened to that debate, because when I went on your social media and you said that we found it offensive and that we were offended by it, I thought that was wrong. But I did see the comments then became about your comments on social media, and I saw the division that it created. And for that reason, I think that was, I won't be changing my support of that motion that we passed today, because I think it does create division. Thank you.
So may I respond?
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Go ahead, Bridget.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up. And I didn't post anything on social media. I just responded. In fact, that night after the City Council meeting, I had several phone calls about Facebook and about Discover Estevan. So I did go on to social media and I did respond respectfully to a lot of those comments. I did see them, and after a while I had to quit responding because it blew up, and obviously this is a big issue. We did not want to politicize any of it. So pro-life was never part of that picture. Pro-life was not on the benches. There's no plaque in honor of pro-life or sponsored by pro-life. We just wanted to have memorial benches, something supportive of families, that the message is always loved, with feet and hearts. I'm not sure how that is offensive. I'm not sure how that is political. It's kind of too bad that pro-life gotten so politicized, and it was thanks to this meeting last month. But we never had any intention of making a statement that these are pro-life benches, and we never wanted to put anything on the bench that was directly related to pro-life, just to have benches in support of families, in support of babies that always loved. That was the end of that story.
Okay, thank you, Bridget. Go ahead.
I just want to make something very clear.
Councillor Frank.
I had calls the day this came into the Mercury article, which was the first time this council heard about it, so I don't appreciate it when you blame this council for politicizing it. It was political well before that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Ford.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks so much for coming today. In listening to what you have to say, I do appreciate you coming and saying what you need to and speaking what you have to say. The reason for rejecting this was was also a way for us to create a policy and create some sort of similarities between all of the benches that are put in the community. If the people who had lost children in any way, shape, or form in this community would like to donate a memorial bench, they are more than welcome to do so. But what we're looking for right now is to create a policy so that your name does go on that bench, so that it does not get passed through. So, I mean, everyone loved is a very general statement, right? It could be taken in any way, but this policy will create a way for us to just be able to have some sort of similarities within all of the benches in our community, saying in memorial of or donated by. And so that's why we were asking, and that's why we rejected this bench proposal, was because we were looking for some kind of name to these benches, in fact, because it didn't seem like it was right to have this slogan on a bench and not know where it came from, because anybody could put any slogan on a bench then and not put their name to it. And I do believe in recognition, in stating what you have to state, and if you have something to say, then your name should be associated to it, no matter who you are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ford. Councillor Vroba?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Bridget, for coming in today. Just to clarify, I was not greatly offended by the benches. I know you had stated that on social media. I didn't see it, but someone else told me about that. And I said...
Because what the Mercury had posted, I only read what the Mercury had posted from that.
It's a post from Bridget, Gemma, Joshua. Is that you?
That would be our account, yes.
Okay, so it says, benches which only say always loved with small feet and a heart around them in city blue have been donated to the City of Estevan for use in city parks. The city has several benches which need replacing, and the design was really liked. City councillors Lindsay Clark and Shelley Veroba took great offense and want to block the benches from being used in public parks. Please explain how these benches are offensive. So I feel the need to tell you that I did not find the benches offensive. If you do go back and watch the council meeting, you will find that the majority of us in this room had a really good discussion about it. And that is why we asked respectfully that we hold off on any benches being put in the park until a policy and a procedure. And I do agree with the fact, what Councillor Frank said. I don't think it's this council that politicized this debate. I don't think that any of us wanted to offend pro-life. I think it's admirable of how you guys have your beliefs and you stand by them, and you do help people. I have many, many friends who are pro-life. I have many, many friends who are pro-choice. And I think what Councillor Clark and the rest of us have said, it is not up to us as a city to decide that debate. It is up to us as a city to ensure that what we are doing in our parks are clear, concise, consistent. So that is what we asked for at the last meeting. What we asked for is a policy and a procedure to be followed moving forward. As Councillor Frank said, when that article came out in the paper, that is what stirred this conversation. So that is what had this council saying, who is making those decisions? Is it management? Should it be management? Is it council? Should it be council? So no one has been offended by pro-life, and I'm sorry, my apologies if you feel that we were offended, because that was not the message we were trying to portray. What we were trying to portray is, at this time, we would respectfully like to ask pro-life to not put the benches in the city park until such time that we can develop a policy and a procedure. And at that time, if that policy and procedure says, yes, let's move forward, let's work with pro-life, let's find a way, then that still may happen. But at this time, we are respectfully asking pro-life to not put the benches, or not ask to put the benches in the park until our policy and procedure has been developed.
Okay, so to the people that want to donate this and put their money beside it, and to the $900 that was already spent on the benches, are the benches just going to be held at the city until which time the city decides on what policy and procedures they would like to have put in place?
Okay, thank you for that, Bridget. Go ahead, Councillor Ford.
Thanks, Your Worship. Would there be an alternative place in the city or in the community that is not on city property that would be maybe willing to put those already manufactured benches up? Do you have any?
I've had people come forward to say, I would love these benches if the city decides not to go forward with them in their parks, but they were manufactured and they were donated to the city, so that is the first place we would like to see them, at the parks where there's mothers, families, children that and I was already told by the city parks manager that there's a great need, that he has a budget of about $5,000 to replace benches. So we just felt as pro-life that this would be a great way to respect the city and to get benches in the city, something that the city could use and that would be positive for families.
Thank you. Yeah, I just know there's a number of other places in this community that are
can go
need of
anywhere.
benches, and they really could. And
But
I'm
it was
just asking if-
$900 that was designated to city parks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll take my share of the responsibility. When this came up and we talked about it with Rod, I thought, any business can put up a bench. If pro-choice wants to put up a bench, if pro-life, it saves the taxpayers money. I did not think it would be an issue, but I do understand, of course, there's people that draw the line in the sand on both sides of this issue. I totally understand that. And Councillor Groba?
And I just think exactly what your worship just said. It may come out that the policy and procedure will say that the benches are fine as long as maybe they have the pro-life slogan on the back or the pro-life emblem, or maybe we discussed that too at the meeting, that maybe what we need is to make sure what Councillor Ford said, that everybody knows exactly who put the benches in so that there is nobody to wonder. And you also have to understand that with our policy and procedure, once we open up where we allow all benches in, then all benches will be allowed in. So at that time, there could be a pro-life bench beside a pro-choice bench beside another bench. So once they become city property, there's no longer, in my opinion, would anyone have the opinion to be able to come and say, we don't want our bench beside that other bench.
Right.
This is the kind of stuff that as city councilors, we are obligated to ensure that we make sure that all of the T's are crossed, I's are dotted, and that we are doing what is best for the community as a whole. If we're only doing what's best for ourselves or our own beliefs, then your pro-life benches might be in, they may not be. That's not why we're here. So if we could maybe hold the benches, like we said, respectfully, hold off onto them. Your worship and the parks manager would know whether or not the city has room to hold off on them, but we need to move forward with the policy and procedure before we make that final decision then.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ford. Go ahead.
Sorry, I would like to make sure it's noted that we don't want them as pro-life benches. They are memorial benches. We'd be happy to put people's names on them, but always loved. I've already listed these 6 families that wanted to donate. We could put their names on them. We could put persons' names on the other ones. We do not want to spark the debate. We do not want it to be hurtful towards anybody on one side or another side. It's been enough politicization. It's been enough polarization.
And you know what, Bridget, perhaps that's the answer.
Yeah. I would be happy to put a name on each one of them, sponsored by so-and-so. We have 6 families that said we would love to sponsor a bench, put our name on them. They have no problem. They all came forward. It was okay for their name to stand at this meeting, and they would be happy to have their name on a bench, donated by in memory of.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. Councillor Walliser?
Thanks, Your Worship, and I do appreciate that flexibility, Bridget. I think, like Councillor Frank alluded to, we were just quite caught off guard. The title of the article is Pro-Life Benches to be Added to City Parks. So that's why we felt it was so important to then do that full vetting process to make sure that if in the future, not only do these 6 families want to sponsor benches and put their names to it, that your pro-life association would also have the ability, depending on what the new policy says, to do that as well. So making sure that all of those topics have been addressed before we commit ourselves to something in the community.
And there's too much polarization out there. We wanted to have it anti-political and non-political. We wanted just in memory of. Simply.
Appreciate that, Bridget. And that might be the answer. Just have the names of the people that want, and I'm sure that won't be an issue.
Yeah.
Because, everybody's so angry over COVID. Any little thing now, we've got arguments, we've got fights. It's ridiculous, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and it is a polarizing topic. I know that, and that's why we want to keep that name out of there. And we can't decide what the paper decides to put in for titles and not for titles, when they ask for an interview and things like that. But, I think the important thing to go forward is the message always loved.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you for coming this evening, Bridget.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay.
Thank you.
And you're both, again, more than welcome to stay. We don't get too many takers, but you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you like. Okay, thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
See you.
Okay, next, under, do we have a motion coming out of that, that as long as they use the family that represents the bench's name, that it's all right?
I would like to see us make the policy and procedure first and then proceed with that, because part of the bench right now does have the pro-life emblem on it. I believe the 2 little feet with the heart is actually pro-life, right? Am I correct on that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so that's what was told to me. And so that's why I just think that we need to make sure, moving forward with the policy and procedure, that that's in place before we say yes to any bench. And I think it's very important that we all understand, and people who bring benches in understand, they will not get a choice, in my opinion, to decide who else's benches go beside them. So
Yeah, that would be Rod's decision, yeah.
Right, but I mean, if this council decides on the policy and procedure to put benches in a park, we cannot make another group come forward and say, please take my bench out because I don't want to be associated with another group.
Oh, no.
So I just want to make sure that the policy and procedure is in place before we proceed with any kind of a motion on accepting any kind of benches at this time.
Okay, so you'd like to wait, get the procedure policy in place, and then perhaps at the next meeting pass and then move forward?
Yeah, if we can have it done by that time, that'd be great.
Okay, Council, I see a bunch of nodding heads. Did you want to make a motion for that, Councillor Groba?
Do we need them? I'm just thinking the motion's already on the books.
Okay, I guess you don't want to have one? Okay, we'll leave it as is. Okay, that's fine. Okay, moving forward, under original communications, delegations, and petitions. We have the 2020 grad sculpture request, design approval, presented by Josh. Josh, please make yourself comfortable in front of the mic, turn it on, and you can give us a little bit of history. It's been a while. And yes, please bring the artiste up as well. Gail?
That's way too close.
Okay, go ahead, Josh.
Well, thanks for having us here tonight. You guys will have an application in front of you for the park space in Torgerson Park. Council has previously approved this sculpture. We had some, obviously through the winter and the fall and all of that, we're trying to get things started up and going. We have designs that have been submitted to you as well. They've also all been submitted to Rod March. We're ready to go and get this thing up. We're very excited for it. So is the class of 2020 parents and the students as well. So I have Gail here with me. She is the artist who's been selected to do the sculpture. So if you have any questions for her, you're more than welcome, or any questions of me.
Okay, Gail, now, was this something you had an epiphany one night and bang, this design came up and you thought, oh my God, would this be great for the kids? What happened?
No, actually, Josh had mentioned that they were wanting to do something for the kids since they didn't have a grad, and that they were looking for submissions. Actually, I ended up not submitting because I have several projects going on in the garden downtown, a couple of murals and an art installation. But anyway, they called me in, because I'd sent them a picture. They called me and said, please submit, so I did. And they totally changed it, because nobody, I was offending people again.
It's easy to offend people these days.
Yeah, so I didn't want to offend people. No, I actually did, but that's beside the point. So anyway, I ended up with a different sculpture that, you know, everybody is happy with, so I hope. Anyway, it's 20 feet long, 20 feet high. For those of y'all who haven't seen it, it's a class of 2020, therefore the 20 feet high, 20 feet long. So DART Services actually agreed to, like, they're doing all of this for like pennies, because that's all we have to work with. And so I have, basically it's 45.5-inch pieces of pipe, and we're going to weld those together to create this wave because they said that's what the year felt like, was a wave. A wave. And anyway, so, and this is the class colors. This is, I personally wanted, much brighter, but I lost. So this is the class colors of shades of blue and silver, and I hope to put a silver lining maybe on it, because they said the year felt like, that was it. Waves, things came in waves and crashed and burned and whatever. So that's kind of the thought behind this, and I like things big. So that's when I rounded up the pipe, if we could do 20 feet tall by 20 feet wide and actually make an impression. Instead of fine, I wanted fantastic. So, because we have a lot of fine, but we don't have a lot of fantastic. So anyway, I hope this is how this turns out. But anyway, it will be sandblasted. Well, it'll be sandblasted, primed with an epoxy primer. Then it'll be painted with sign paint, which supposedly this should last it until I could care less what y'all think. So I'm hoping, they're saying like really 15, 20 years if it's done properly, and that's my plan.
Okay, thank you very much, Gail. Obviously, a lot of thought and work has gone in by both of you, so thank you so much. We have Councillor Vroba has a question, then Councillor Frank.
Thank you, Worship. Actually, you answered my question. My first question was going to be just what was the significance of the wave, because I kept trying. I was looking at the sculpture itself, and I kept thinking like, we don't live in a beach community. What's this wave? But I like the way you think, like the thought process of that, where, that basically it has been a wavy kind of year for everybody. And so this will be just for the class of 2020, right? 2021 will not be associated with that at all? Okay.
No, this is the money that they fundraise to do this with.
That's what I figured. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Frank?
I was just laughing because you said you wanted it big and colorful, and that doesn't describe you at all, Gail. Not at all. That's not...
I mean, honestly, my first thought was it was a bar graph because of school. It was a bar graph with the ups and downs of life. Colorful, darker colors at the bottom. Anyway, they thought it might be interpreted as a rainbow. So I was booted to the curb.
I think it's great either way. So I really appreciate yours and Mr. LeBlanc's work on doing this, because obviously last year was a crazy year, and I'm sure you'll already probably planning something up for this year, because it's just been just as crazy of a year. So I appreciate all the work that's been put into it, and I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ford.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks so much for coming, and thanks again, Gail, for your continued work into making our city a beautiful place with all the artwork that you find for us and create for us. I just have a quick question. Does this require, once it's installed, does it require any maintenance going forward, or?
That's why we're doing the epoxy primer and then the sign paint. It should not require anything. The tops will be capped so that water can't get in and cause issues there. And basically, I think it'll be creating a bit of a nesting area for the birds unintentionally, but I think that's what will happen. No, it shouldn't require any. It's steel. It's it's steel pipe. It will be installed on screw piles and an I-beam, and that's Dart's engineer. That's his plan. So.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds good and sturdy. Okay, thank you, Councillor Ford, because as you know, with our 100-mile-an-hour winds, we'll need something strong. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Gail, Josh. I'll be providing no artistic critique of anything you're doing, but I will support what you're doing, and I know that you'll do a great job, Gail. Thanks you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? If not, do we have a motion to move forward? Councillor Frank. Thank you. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Ford. Thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. There you go, guys. Go hard. Yep. And again, you guys are more than welcome to stay. Okay. They're running out this time. No problem. Okay, under written reports of committees, we have from the Estevan Humane Society, the minutes of May 17th. Could we have a motion, please, to approve those minutes? Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Cernick. Any questions, comments? If not, go ahead, Councillor Cerny.
Comment, Your Worship, thank you. Just to make a note that they are taking pledges right now, doing a dog jog down at Woodlawn Park on June the 6th. I think they're going to follow the same kind of idea as the Coal Country Run with the dogs. So support your local humane society, find someone to pledge, or get a pledge sheet and get your dog out there.
Super, thank you for that, Councillor Cerny. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Next, under written reports of committees, we have from the Estevan Public Library the minutes of April and of May. Could we have a motion for that, please? Councillor Welliser, seconded by Councillor Ford. Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Next, under written reports of committees, we have from the Estevan Exhibition Association minutes of May 13th. Could we have a motion, please, to accept those minutes? Councillor Cerny, thank you. Seconder by Councillor Broba. Any further questions? Councillor Cerny.
Just to mention, obviously, I think it's a bit in the paper and everything that the West Coast Amusements, while the whole Estevan exhibition will be put off till 2022. But again, they're going to be having fundraisers. Get out and support them, anything they can, movie nights. They're looking at and all sorts of stuff. And I do believe they are planning for their rodeo on September long weekend. So watch for that.
Thank you, Councillor Cerny. Appreciate that. Okay, next, under executive reports. Jeff is not in the front for those of you watching TV, but he is with us tonight. James is helping us out with any IT issues. So this is Jeff's baby, capital budget amendment. City Manager, did you have anything you'd like to say to this?
Oh, hold on, Jeff.
Oh, just wait, Jeff.
I think time's up.
Okay, is he ready? James?
Here.
Oh,
Try it now.
Try it now, Jeff.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now. Yep, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. As was mentioned in the report, we did have some grant applications pending when we went through the initial budget process. We did receive some funding. Fortunately, we were given the Pathway project, and we were given UHCP funding to pay from Sewers to Kensington. So those are fairly significant items, and I think it's prudent that we review the capital budget amendment. You can see that in the report. I still like to propose that we continue to pay down $4 million of debt, borrowing $2 million, and keeping the other operations as standards. So I'm here to answer any questions on the report. The report clearly states what's been changed from the first one to the revised one. Again, this is just administration's recommendations, and then we will follow council's directives on whatever they decide for the capital projects.
Okay, thank you, Jeff, and a job well done by you and Trudy. I'll open the floor. Any questions or comments? Councillor Frank.
You know, I appreciate this all, City Manager, and I just look at these opportunities with these grants that we've been given and think back to the last term, and then I know we all set out to pay down our $2 million of debt every year, and in the first year the opportunity came up for the fire hall. We chose not to pay down some debt that year. We still didn't add any debt, just didn't pay any down. We were able to accomplish a huge task in our community, and by the end of the term we had paid down more than that year's worth of debt anyways, which is a great success. So when I look at these opportunities, that's what we're here for, is to take those chances, or to take those, I'm going to say opportunities again, I got to find a new word, and utilize them. And I think this year, you know, getting that many pathways built in our city, getting streets repaved, to be able to do that is a great legacy that we'll have, and we'll still continue to make sure our debt's a focus, especially now that it's a little bit more under control than it used to be many years ago. So,
absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Frank. Any other comments? Councillor Broba.
Thank you, Worship. And I think it's very important, too, that we keep the Churchill Pool repair project in the budget. I think especially with COVID and the lack of opportunities and activities for the children, that Churchill Pool needs to be repaired in order to stay for years to come. And so I know it's some tough cuts that we had to make in the couple of projects that did come out. Again, we'll look at them for next year, and hopefully they'll get put back in the budget and we'll be able to still complete them. But I think it's very smart, and thank you very much to management who redid this. And yeah, it looks good. I'm in favor of it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vroba. Jeff, did you have any other comments?
One thing just to add there on the Churchill pool, so we did do some geotech work to make sure that that hill wasn't sloughing, and it looks like we've got all the information we need. We will be going out to tender on that. Initial indication that Rod's had with pool manufacturers is that because a lot of these smaller cities that got some COVID funding are doing outdoor pools, that it may not be something that can be completed this year. Obviously, we hope it is, and we'd like to get some groundwork, but out of the tender process, if there is no bids that can complete this year, we may want to revise the capital project again. I think we would always start all the groundwork and anything that we could do internally, but if the pool builders couldn't come, we may look at some of the things that have been pushed to next year and do some rearranging at that time if council wishes.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. And yes, our budget is always fluid and flexible. Thank you. Councillor Vroba.
Thank you, Worship. So just to clarify then, Churchill Park will not be open this summer. Even like if we could start some things on our own, we still can't open Churchill Park until this is completed?
Yeah, we would not be able to open the pool. It would have to be a total redo and underground filtration system. In regards to the timeline, we'll know more once the tender submissions are in, and we can bring a full report to council with Rod well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Vroba. Thank you, City Manager. Have we got a motion? Go ahead, Councillor Cernick.
Thank you, Worship. Just had a few questions on the list there. Just wondering if the importance of a few of them. North side of Affinity Drainage, is that a want or a need?
Yeah, what happened?
That was actually...
Go ahead, City Manager.
Sorry, Your Worship, through Councillor Cernick, that was identified under OH&S. It was a significant tripping hazard, and we already had completed some initial work on that, so I believe we're just finishing it right now. I can get a report from Rod on where we are in the status of that, but it was identified as kind of an OH regulation that there had been multiple falls there, and something had to be rectified in the winter months there.
Okay.
Yeah, what happened, Councillor Cernick, off the roof, when it's nice in the winter, it pools and then people are falling, so we were going to run the water into the storm sewer, and then that would avoid all the tripping hazards.
Okay. The other one would be the traffic light standards, King and 13th going south. Again, I don't really see a need for that, but...
Go ahead, Jeff, or City Manager, did you want to explain that one?
Yes, to Councillor Cernick. So this was pushed off last year. As you know, the traffic lights heading north were hit by a semi, and they were replaced with a newer standard. It had been discussed at that time that we would get a matching standard that you'd be going south. There is additional funding for traffic lights that Norm has applied for, and that's why you'll see that amount is halved into this year. We can't announce any, we haven't got any final recommendations from SGI on if they're going to cover that cost, but we can keep council in the loop on that. I think if we get funding for it, we should potentially move forward with it, but if council has a discussion that they would like to postpone that, we can definitely look at that as well.
Yeah, part of the issue there, Councillor Cernick, if SGI pays half, how about that? Then we'll put it in, otherwise we won't. And we still don't know for sure. They said we'd probably get it, which means we probably will. So if we can maybe do it under that premise, I think everybody will.
For sure.
Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Walliser?
Thanks, Your Worship. Just to the City Manager, if you can just give us a little bit more information. I know initially the belief was held that the First Street boulder replacement was for safety reasons and not aesthetic value. And I know now we're saying it's just so that it looks better, and that's why we are able to delay that a year. Is that correct?
To Councillor Walliser, there had been some rocks that identified that had fallen onto First Street. Those have been put back and replaced. I can get a full safety assessment report from Rod. I know everyone involved on reviewing that process indicated that we could postpone that a year, but let me dig into it a little further, and if there's significant safety concerns or we're concerned that too many boulders will be falling, I can definitely bring that back to council. From my understanding, there was an area that was done with when somebody needed their services repaired, and the rocks were actually cemented back in, so that could have been part of the issue that could have been rectified. But I can get more information on that and bring back to the next council.
Thank you.
Okay, and yeah, we would like to assure the people on there that this will be done next year. And I know the frustration when something like this is postponed. Councillor Broba?
Thank you, Worship. I had a question about the actual, when we do proceed with that project. Will you people, I noticed that there's steps built into those rocks. Will those steps still be allowed to be built into the new structures that's there?
My understanding is, and Jeff, you can, city manager, you can correct me if I'm wrong, not every house, it'll be staggered over the block and it'll be done properly and to OH&S guidelines.
Okay, but there still would be some front access. Okay, thank you.
Is that right, city manager? Yes.
Yeah.
He's nodding his head.
Yeah, that's correct, Your Worship. We did have some issues with that you don't really want to make a sidewalk or walking path up top due to safety reasons, but we did want to have access from people parking down there to get up into their residence. So I believe it was every second or third house there still would be a walkway. I think we'll bring a full design. I know Rod March was looking at that. We can bring a full design for what we were planning next council so everyone has all the information.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vroba, city manager. So do we have a motion to accept the new recommendations with the changes? Councillor Vroba? Thank you. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Cernick? Any further questions, comments? Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, we have from the city clerk, the National 3-Digit Suicide Prevention Hotline. City clerk, did you want me to just explain briefly? Basically, whereas the federal government has passed a motion to adopt 988, a national 3-digit suicide and crisis hotline, and whereas the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has increased the demand for suicide prevention services by 200%, and whereas existing suicide prevention hotlines require the user to remember a 10-digit number and to go through directories or be placed on hold, and whereas in 2022, the United States will have in place a national 988 crisis hotline, and whereas the City of Estevan recognizes that it's a significant and important initiative to ensure critical barriers are removed to those in crisis and seeking help. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Estevan endorses this 988 crisis line initiative, and that city staff be directed to send a letter indicating such support to the local MP, MPP, Federal Minister of Health, the CRTC, and local area municipalities to indicate our support. And we thank Mr. Kitchen, our MP. He was involved in this. It was a Conservative MP, Todd Doherty, that brought this forward, so thank you for that. What's the wish of council? Councillor Clark.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Ford. Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under executive reports from the Water Services Manager, the painting of the water tower. Now we're looking at quite a few refurbishments to our water tower. She's getting old and aged and she needs some attention. One of these things that we're doing will be repainting. Rod would like some direction on to what color to paint the water tower, or if you want to change the colors of the tower. Frankly, I like it the way it is, but it's currently painted gray with Estevan in quotation painted in black paint. There are a couple of options that are available. Leave as is, paint the City of Estevan logo on the tower, leaving the rest of it gray, get feedback from the public on a design of the tower, remove the quotation marks, heaven forbid, around Estevan, or decide on how Estevan would be painted on the tower and then leave the base color gray. We can install LED lights, and this was kind of talked about last council, on the bottom of the tower, because that would be the most reasonable, rather than hanging lights on the tower and then having somebody go up there to change them. So you put the lights at the base, and then you can change colors. It'll be LED, and then depending on the events that we have within the city, I think it would look quite nice. So what's the wish of council? Councillor Frank, then Councillor Ford.
First of all, thanks for all this information, and this is kind of a unique opportunity, and I just want to assure this is because we're actually renovating the tower, not because we just feel like it needs paint job.
No, it's time. The base is already starting to leak as well.
So this is good. I just had a question to Shane, just in terms of changing colors, I know there was additional costs, is there additional costs to just picking one color? We're talking multiple colors, or what does this look like? I guess that's kind of what I'm curious about.
The more, and I should have read the bottom here, if you get too out of line with different colors or stripe it or whatever, the more expensive it will be. At this time, I do not have a cost for different colors. It would vary with the design as well. The more variety of colors, they will fade differently. So, you know, it could look like something else if you're not too careful. And repainting of the tower can get quite expensive, again, with touch-ups if you change the colors.
So we'll assume lots, because it always is.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to hear what everybody on council's opinion. I love the modern aspect of our logo, but I also think the icon of our quotation marks is just so cool, so I would love to hear everybody's opinion.
Yeah, I prefer it the way it is, but Councillor Ford and Councillor Broba.
Thanks, Your Worship. I know Councillor Frank and I were tagged on Facebook by a former resident of Estevan, Trevor Gowan, today saying, keep the quotations. Yeah. So he's put his input in, but I'm a little bit leery about putting the logo on it, just in case we were ever to, for whatever reason, have a rebrand of our city logo. Then we'd be paying all that money to redo the water tower in whatever the new city logo might be. So I would be in favor of not putting our logo on it.
Just Estevan with the quotations.
Of course, the quotations. Okay. But I really do like the idea of the lights. I mean, there's a lot of cities, bigger cities, I mean, Niagara Falls, places in Toronto that light up their big monuments kind of thing in order to commemorate certain things or for big events and whatnot. So I really do like that idea. It gives our city a little bit of a modern feel kind of thing, and it would create a good opportunity for us to showcase a number of different days and such. So I do like that idea.
Absolutely, Councillor Ford, I agree. And I know when we talked about it with last council, Trevor was adamant that we put lights, because we did discuss you put them up there and then they burn out, but this is a great idea. Have them at the bottom shining up. You can walk and replace them. Councillor Broba?
Thank you, Worship. And of course, on true fashion, I was the cheapskate that didn't want to spend the $60,000. But will that $60,000 be included in the money that's already been allocated for the, so it will not come out of our budget?
No.
It's money that's been allocated for the water tower. And I am in favor of keeping it gray, because again, I don't see the need to pay extra money to paint something that's already colored there.
Yeah, it looks great.
And one of the first questions that was asked to me when I got on council in 2016 was from somebody who flies, and asked why the quotation marks. So I did come to council and ask, and we did kind of get the answer that we weren't really 100% sure, but we figured it was just the person who was contracted to paint the words Estevan on the water tower, took it right off the paper that had quotation marks as to what was to be painted. So that was the story that I was told in 2016, and that is the story I've continued to be told. So
the painter took it literally.
Right. And so I do find it unique that we did have the Christmas ornaments with the water tower, and then it had the Estevan in quotations on it. But I also would be curious as to see what the flying community still has to say about that. So,
well, there is, and you won't see this, it's on top of the tower, but there is an arrow pointing to the airport.
Yes, because
I think that's all they want left on. But
yeah, because then they can see that it's the city of Estevan and which way to the airport type thing. So, which I did not know was the significance of
You'd
that.
only see that from a plate.
Yeah, so that was very interesting. So yeah, I think it's a good thing, and I would be in favor of the lights moving forward if it's paid for with money that isn't coming out of our budget.
Yeah, it won't be extra. It's in the package. Yeah. Councillor Clark?
I wanted white with a yellow stripe. But I think I'm too late.
Okay. Any other? Councillor Cernick?
Is there a color of the tower that would work the best with the lights, Shane?
I think gray. Oh, Shane's there? Okay. Go ahead, Shane.
When we tested it before, we used gray and it worked out really well. You just want a base color so that the reflected of the light is equal. So gray worked out to be pretty well for that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Vroba?
Sorry, thank you, Worship. We do have a concern from a person that lives in that area regarding the noise in the park. These lights that we install are not going to be something that's going to disrupt anyone in the neighborhood?
LED, it'll all be quiet.
Okay, just want to make sure, throw that out there, that we check that out first.
Okay, yeah, and they shine up, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion to, I guess, go with gray, and the lights will be included in the package, and leave the quotation marks up? Councillor Frank?
I want to I'll make that motion, and I will call it the Trevor Gowan bill or something like that, the quotation marks will live on, and yes, I'll make the motion that we would paint it. The existing colors, existing look.
Okay, well, he'll be happy, and Councillor Ford, did you want to reconfirm that for him and second it? Okay.
And the lights do shine down though, right? Not up, because if they're shining up, it's for the actual airplanes flying over that would actually
yeah, no, it's just under the tank.
Under the tank, that's
under the tank.
Okay.
Yeah, just not into the pilot's eyes, absolutely. Okay, any further questions? If not, all in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you. Could we have a motion, please, to accept the building permit report for April? Thank you. Councillor Cernick, seconded by Councillor Vroba. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Next, we have from the water treatment plant manager, the monthly water quality report, which now that we have the Rafferty water, we've got flying colors on that. Treated a total of 109,483,400 liters of water and pumped 104,345,500 liters into the distribution center. Have we got a motion to accept this report? Thank you, Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Walliser. Any further questions? Councillor Cernick.
Thank you, Worship. I just did have one question. It's just the new words that we live with these days for some reason. I was just looking for an explanation on the false positive that was reported.
Yeah, okay. Shane, did you want to explain that? I know that's a COVID term, but...
No, so what that is every week we have to take 3 samples representative of the distribution system. So we travel around and we grab 3 from 3 random locations in the city. We then do tests back for chlorine, and then we send it off to the Roy Romano laboratory for bacteria samples. We had one that came back with A positive on it, and part of the procedure of that is that we immediately go resample. And then if that sample is clear, then it's deemed as a false positive.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I think the other bottle fell out of a PMU barn, and it just got mixed up, and they got the wrong results.
It looked like boundary water?
Yeah, something like that. Okay. So did we get that motion, City Clerk? Yes. We did. Okay. Moving forward, land development, parks manager, dog park concerns. Now, like anything else, when we have something new in our city, we'll always get feedback from our community members. You've got the report here from City Manager.
Rod and Richard.
And Rod, yep. What's the wish of council on this? I like the idea of trying it for a trial period. See if there's any real valid concerns, and then we can make an informed decision. You agree, Councillor Brobe?
I will make that motion, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you for that. Have we got a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Ford. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next, under executive reports, we have from Land Development again, the development permit 030-2021, 526 12th Avenue. Richard, did you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is an application for what will be if approved, the 3rd cannabis retail store outlet in the city. This one's downtown. You're familiar with Teresa's Sewing Basket location. That will be the individual that would be running the store if this were approved. We've recommended approval subject to conditions which we've been standardly putting on this type of development.
Okay,
We did refer to it to adjacent landowners and what have you, and we didn't receive a single phone call or anything.
Okay, thank you for that, Richard. What is the wish of council? Do we have a motion to move forward with the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Cernick. You'll make that motion. Have we got a seconder, Councillor Clark? Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Again, from Land Development, Richard, we're going to keep you busy tonight. Westview Place subdivision. Would you like to explain that, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is the subdivision portion. You may remember in a recent council meeting, you closed the laneway in the rear of the Westview Place.
That's right.
So this would be the subdivision. The main idea on the subdivision now will be to keep the power line and if this is approved, a new utility easement for the power line on the park property, which is to the south, and then the remainder of the land would go to the 5 residential lots that are adjacent to it in equal proportion. We originally, when we were doing this, we thought it was going to be 4 meters of the 6 meters going to the lots and 2 meters with the power line going to the park, but it's actually going to be the opposite of that, because the utility company would like a 5-meter right-of-way in total.
Which you can understand. With them big bucket trucks, they need that much room to do their job safely.
So if council were to approve this, I believe the next step would be for my department to send an invoice to the 5 landowners for their proportionate share, and then once that's done, then it's a matter of getting the survey done and approved, and this file will be dealt with.
Okay, thank you for that, Richard. What's the wish of council on this? Councillor Wellesley.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just want to clarify, the homeowners have all been told about the change in the amount of land that they'll be receiving?
They would be once the subdivision has been decided, yes.
Okay.
Okay, and that's a fair comment, Councillor Worleys. Or maybe, Richard, we could just send them all a notice. I think there's only 5, right? Let them know that this change will be happening, and hopefully they're still in favor of it.
Yeah, they were told when this started that the dimensions that we gave them were approximate, and it would be determined by the final decision that came from the surveyor and the utility company, that we were going to try to keep utility right-of-way entirely on the park property.
Good.
So we don't wind up this way with, say, a half a meter of power line right-of-way sticking over the edge of the lot lines.
Exactly, and they will be getting roughly at least a couple meters, and all they have to do is help pay for the transfer fees.
Yeah, I think it's still a very attractive deal for them.
Yeah, good point. Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Rolisa?
My concern would just be that we lose the buy-in that was previously garnered without going back to the homeowners and letting them know that there has been a fairly substantial change in the amount of land that they'll be receiving.
Okay.
Is it possible to take it back to those 5 homeowners before we proceed?
Well, I'm sure we
If
could.
you want to, you could give me an approval in principle, because I don't want to go to landowners and tell them this is all you're getting, because I don't have that authority unless I have council to back it up.
Yeah, if
you gave approval in principle, then I can go.
Yeah, if we could have a motion to approve in principle pending agreement of the landowners.
I would make that motion.
Okay, thank you. Have we got a seconder? Okay, Councillor Frank, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, next from Land Development, subdivision report for 1505-1517 Willock Road. Richard, please explain.
This is the subdivision proposal that would add 6 meters of land from the hospital property to the south boundary of the lots that are fronting Willock Road at Hawke's Bay.
Yeah, this should make the lots more saleable, Richard, plus the swale, which is now in the middle of the lots, we can move to the back, which again will be more attractive.
Yeah, the only thing that might be a little bit odd about it is the utility boxes, those big green boxes, will be sitting roughly 20 feet north of the property line now. But I would think it's still better than what it was before, that's for sure.
Yeah, at least we're moving the swale back, and we thank the hospital board and Mr. Hoffert for allowing that to happen. Thank you. Councillor Frank?
Only one question to that, and it would just be for more information, I guess, than anything would be, what would it, could you look into what it would cost to move the utilities? I don't know that it's something we would want to do. I think it would probably be quite large cost, but I just want to know just for the sake of it.
Yeah, I think Councillor Frank, we talked to them and they weren't,
Wasn't even an option?
It would be a high cost.
Okay.
Yeah, it would. Yeah,
Yeah, just, I mean, and that's very much appreciated, even if we just talk to them, just because I know if somebody wants to buy that lot, it's going to be the first question you're going to ask, and if we can at least say,
exactly.
it's not going to be, it's not feasible, then that's.
Yeah, and we thought, even if they wanted to put a wrap on their box, wouldn't be a problem. And then the swale, which is probably the most unsightly, will be moved to the back.
A lot of people grow shrubs around them or anything like that. It's not the first time that it'd be inside of a property, so it's not the end of the world, but just wanted to have at least that information. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Could we have a motion for that, please, Councillor Clark?
That part that's marked bulb, is that going to be part of 1517, or is that part of a lot there? Or is
the bulb?
Yeah.
Oh, that's for the that's the land for the new drainage easement?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
That's for the new drainage easement, so that would be off of what would be the remainder of the hospital lands.
Okay.
And that is a separate matter because that doesn't require subdivision to approve.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would expect that the drainage easement would be done concurrently with registration of the subdivision.
Yeah, that will not be for vehicles to travel. We don't want vehicular traffic back there.
Because the survey plan, in order to be registered, will need authorization in writing from both the hospital and the city. And I would not think that either of those two parties would do that without the drainage easement also being done at the same time.
Yeah, part and parcel.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept this? Councillor Walliser?
I have one more question, Your Worship.
Okay.
So it's noted in your report that a portion of those lots will be deemed institutional temporarily until that zoning bylaw comes out. If, in good fortune, we do sell a lot before that rezoning is done, would that pose any problem to the new homeowner in proceeding?
The only issue that would come up with that is if they were going to have the house footprint in the rear 20 feet of the lot, which I would think would be very unlikely. Yeah. And even then, it would have to be a major encroachment. We don't take the zonings in a case like that. And this is called a split zoning, where you have two different zonings on one lot. And we have allowances to not take that literally, like it's a property line. So, I would have no problem of considering a building permit for a house after this is registered.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion? Thank you. Councillor Cernick, seconded by Councillor Walliser. Any further questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Last but not least, Richard, from Land Development, business bylaw approval for public consultation.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is, I believe, City Manager, was that 2016 or 2017 when the original business bylaw came out? So this is the first update since then for Your Worship and Council. And it's got some new features in it, one of the biggest ones probably being food trucks. And I know there's been some controversy about food trucks in the past, locating too near to a restaurant or that have you. So what I would like to do is, and it's a little bit different, I guess, than the usual approach that we take with bylaws, rather than giving it a first reading, which could be perceived by some that this is a done deal, I'd like if Council could consider just approving this for information purposes to make it public. That doesn't mean that you're in favor or against it, you're neutral to it. But what I can do then is I can meet with some of the operators of brick and mortar restaurants and food trucks and get feedback from them, and then bring that back to you at a future meeting so that we can maybe take care of like 95% of any issues that are going to be dealt with prior to dealing with in council chambers.
Okay, I think it's a great idea. Richard, thank you for that. Communication is never a bad thing. Councillor Frank?
Yeah, I thank you, Your Worship. I very much appreciate that method because I know particularly around food trucks, lots of the restaurants have opinions. Obviously, I'm sure the food truck owners have some good opinions, so and some good feedback. This is a new thing, food trucks. They, I guess, not necessarily super new, but only in the last few years have we really seen a lot of them in Estevan, and I'd love to see us have something that really has their buy-in and their consultation on. So I like that approach. I think that's really good. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Frank. Councillor Walliser?
Thank you, Your Worship. The other members of the community that I hope do reach out and contact you are those who are in those residential home-based businesses, Class 1 and Class 2. Their fees are different than a traditional brick and mortar store, and so I think it'll be important for them to review this information as it's presented and then speak to how that impacts them as business owners as well.
We can add that to the list, sure.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion then to approve the bylaw approval moving forward? Thank you, Councillor Cernick. Seconded by Councillor Clark. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Okay, next, under introduction of bylaws. I don't know, I've been checking them off. I think we go to bylaw 21-2039 OCP, right, Richard?
Yes.
Did you want
to? That's what's on my agenda.
Yeah. Sorry. No problem. No problem. Richard, did you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. The previous council gave third reading to the bylaw, and then it has to, under statute, go to the province for a sign-off. And typically, these come back with requests or, I guess, requirements for changes because they won't sign off unless they're happy with it. In this case, the changes amounted to changing 8.5 by 11 maps to landscape format and tabloid size so that it'd be easier for people to read. And then there was a section where the province wanted the term floodplain to be reworded to flood fringe. And there was a policy, one policy statement regarding school reserves that they wanted to be taken out. When I was doing this plan, the subdivision regulations were under review at the same time, and it looked like the province was going to put in a new type of reserve, like environmental reserve and municipal reserve, and it was going to be called school reserve. So I thought, hey, I might as well have an updated document that reflected that. Well, apparently that didn't go through, so I got to take that one out. And that was essentially all of the requirements from the province. In addition to that, something I believe that the previous council never anticipated last fall was that our Parks Department would be doing almost a decade's worth of park development in one season. So the parks map, you know, I put the what's going to be in the construction season for this year as existing, and then there's only a little bit left. It does look a little bit weird, I guess, potentially on your point of view, but it's really all we can do because in order to expand on the parks map for the next decade or so would require a new recreation master plan to be done by City Parks Department, and that is a time-consuming process. With regards to that, though, this plan, if it's adopted, it doesn't mean that you can't amend it for a decade. If something major comes up, we can deal with it at that time.
And make amendments.
Yeah, and so there's, in terms of the way the plan was to be adopted, there was a procedure that's allowable under the Planning and Development Act, which would allow for us to just rescind the final two readings and then start from first reading again. But our city clerk, who's got a lot more experience with the Cities Act than I do, has determined that that would be a conflict with the Cities Act. So that's why you have a proposed bylaw in front of you, which would rescind the bylaw from last year in full, and then run this one through the process. So if there's any questions.
And you're asking to give first reading tonight?
That's what we would like, yeah, and schedule a public hearing if council is comfortable with that.
Okay, we'll open the floor. Questions and comments. Councillor Weiser.
Thanks, Your Worship. I had submitted quite a few questions just trying to understand this plan. It is quite extensive, and as you had mentioned, many of the following policies such as zoning do stack on top of this. What I really like about this plan is it gives metrics. It gives an ability to track progress moving forward, and so I think knowing that this document itself can change in time, I'm comfortable moving to first reading tonight.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Weiser. Any other questions or comments? If not, could we have a motion, please, for first reading this evening? Thank you, Councillor Weiser. Okay, first reading for bylaw 2021-2039, the OCP.
Second.
Oh, sorry, we have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ford. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, and that will be advertised for a couple of weeks. Okay, next under introduction of bylaws, we have bylaw 2021-2040 to extend time for assessment roll. Now, I understand, ladies, that we want to give not only first reading, but second and third tonight, Trina?
Please, yeah.
Okay. And that's so that you can move forward, right?
Yeah, so since assessments were received from SAMA after April 1st, we're required to pass a bylaw to extend the time.
Okay, thank you for that. Richard, you're welcome to stay, but I understand the hour is getting late.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also an invitation for the councillors that were here in the previous council. They went through this process that started at the beginning of 2018. Any of the new councillors that weren't in the previous one, if you have any questions regarding this document, please, I'm only a phone call away or drop by the office. I'd love to be able to explain to you what the reasoning is behind certain things.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Trina, for the explanation. So tonight, for bylaw 2021-2040, we'll be looking at giving all three readings tonight. Being a bylaw of the City of Estevan to extend the time required for the completion of the 2021 assessment roll. The Council of the City of Estevan and the Province of Saskatchewan enacts as follows. Whereas subsection 1742 of the Cities Act requires that preparation of the assessment roll will be completed by April 1st of each year, and whereas it is provided for within subsection 364 of the Cities Act that City Councils may, by bylaw, set a further or other time for the completion of such council-related matters. Therefore, be it resolved that the date of completion for the 2021 assessment roll be extended to June 21st, 21. This bylaw shall come into force and effect upon the final passing thereof. So could we have a motion, please, for first reading? Councillor Clark, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Vroba. All in favor? Carried. Now I will call for second reading of bylaw 2021-2040, being a bylaw of the City of Estevan to extend the time required for the completion of the 2021 assessment roll. Do we have that motion? Thank you, Councillor Vroba. Seconded by Councillor Ford. And here in second is where I ask any questions or comments. Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Next, I'll ask for third reading.
Nope, study be waived.
Oh, yes, thank you, City Clerk. Now I have to ask that the council that we waive, how do I put that? That we waive, we don't hold in abeyance. Right, council for study, because usually this would be sent out for 2 weeks. So first off, we have to have a motion that council and committee, the study be waived. Then we'll go to third reading. Okay, Councillor Walliser, seconded by Councillor Frank. All in favor? Now, this is where I say, for bylaw 2021-2040, being a bylaw of the City of Estevan to extend the time required for the completion of the 2021 assessment roll for adoption and use. Third reading. Thank you, Councillor Walliser, seconded by Councillor Frank. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, bylaw 2021-2041, property tax bylaw. This one we will give first reading. Could we have a motion for first reading, please? Councillor Frank, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Grova. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, my goodness, we have more bylaws tonight than we do in a year.
It's Trina.
Bylaw 2021-2042, library levy bylaw. Again, first reading. Do we have a motion for that, please? Thank you. Councillor Cernick, seconded by Councillor Clark. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, bylaw 2021-2043, bid levy bylaw, first reading. Do we have a motion? Thank you. Councillor Walliser, seconded by Councillor Cernick. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under introduction of bylaws, we have bylaw 2021-2044, regional health care levy. First reading. Thank you. Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Cernick. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Last but not least, under introduction of bylaws, we have bylaw 2021-2045, fee for service bylaw. First reading. I know you're all getting tired. The night is young. Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Grova. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next we have, under public hearings and reports, we have none this evening. Under giving notice, I have a couple of notices. First off, we have post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, awareness for June. Whereas June has been declared as PTSD Awareness Month each year around the world, and whereas for centuries we have recognized post-traumatic stress disorder, whereas PTSD can affect all ages, children through to seniors, and whereas treatment for PTSD is available, and whereas it is up to each of us to know that the PTSD assessment form is a major tool to seek medical assistance, and whereas PTSD Awareness Month urges all to seek help for those who may have PTSD requiring medical assistance, and now therefore I, Mayor Roy Ledrick of the City of Estevan, do hereby proclaim June as PTSD Awareness Month in our city and encourage all residents to recognize this month. In witness thereof, I have set my hand and caused a seal of the City of Estevan to be affixed. Could we have a motion, please, to accept that? Councillor Walliser, thank you. Councillor Cernick, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under giving notice, we have Recreation and Parks proclamation for the month of June. Whereas in Saskatchewan, we are fortunate to have a variety of recreation and park systems providing countless recreation opportunities for residents. And whereas recreation enhances quality of life, active living, and lifelong learning, helps people live happier and longer, develop skills and positive self-image in children and youth, and develops creativity and builds healthy bodies and positive lifestyles. And whereas recreation participation builds family unity and social capital, strengthens volunteer and community development, creates community pride and vitality, and promotes sensitivity and understanding to cultural diversity. And whereas recreation, therapeutic recreation, and leisure education are essential to enhancing the quality of life of individuals who experience living with a disability or have become ill or are disadvantaged. And whereas the benefits provided by recreation and parks programs and services reduce health care and social services costs, serve to boost the economy, economic renewal and sustainability, enhance property values, attract new business, increase tourism, and whereas our parks, open space, and trails ensure ecological sustainability, provide space, and you guys think you're tired, to enjoy nature, help maintain clean air and water, and preserve plant and animal wildlife. And whereas all levels of government, the nonprofit and voluntary sectors, and private enterprise throughout the province participate in the planning, development, and operation of recreational and parks programs, services, and facilities. Now, therefore, that the Saskatchewan Parks and Recreation Association, SPRA, does hereby proclaim that June, which witnessed the greening of Saskatchewan and serves as a significant gateway to summer family activities, has designated June as Recreation and Parks Month, which will annually recognize and celebrate the benefits derived year-round from quality public and private recreation and parks resources at the local, regional, and provincial levels. Be it therefore resolved, I, Roy Ludwig, Mayor of the City of Estevan, in recognition of the benefits and values that recreation, parks, and leisure services provide, do hereby designate the month of June 2021 to be Recreation and Parks Month in the City of Estevan. Could we have a motion, please, to finish that off? Thank you. Councillor Broba. Seconded by Councillor Frank. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Okay, tonight, motions from committee, we have none. Consideration of bylaws, we have none. Inquiries, and something I should have said at the beginning, the reason we have the shoes out front is in honor of the 215 children that were discovered in Kamloops in the residential school. I'm sure everyone is aware of that, but just so everyone knows. And the flags flying at half-mast until June 8th? June 8th, 215 hours. Okay, Councillor Broba.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to say that we respectfully had spoken earlier about where the placement of the shoes are. Right now, they're walking into City Hall.
Thank you, and thank you for that. And City Clerk brought that up. We're going to put them around the evergreen tree, so you will be able to see them. And they will not pause or cause any tripping hazard.
Nor will they be soaked by the sprinklers. Where they are situated right now, the sprinklers will wreck them, and we don't want to do that. We want to honor them the way that they're being honored. So
absolutely. Thank you for that. Councillor Broba, anything else?
Oh, yes.
I should have known that.
It's been a long couple of weeks. Thank you to Rod Marsh and the city crew from the residents of the White House on the landscaping around the tree sculptures. They really appreciated that. Also, Councillor Ford and I both received a report of what the water sprinklers have been doing behind the Parkview Place condos on Saturday morning. And basically, this was an issue that was happening last year, too, so we were going to wait and not bother Rod on the weekend and bother him on Monday. However, it ended up that I got another text from a different resident later on in the evening that a sprinkler had been going off all day behind Frelick Bay, which is probably the same kind of where the pooling of water was coming from. So thankfully, Rod went out that evening on Saturday night and was able to turn off the zone valve that was affected with that sprinkler. So yes, they are going to look into that for anyone that noticed and thought the city was watering for 24 hours straight. The other thing is I had a report from a water leak. One of the couple of residents, so thank you to them, where they reported that there was water coming out of the hill behind McDonald Road, and it was actually a water break that was causing, it actually caused, I believe, the Willow Greens Park and a few other places to be without water or to be with a very low water flow for a few days. So I just wanted to say thank you to the residents who do reach out when they see something. It's very important that we all have eyes on everything. And when you do see something, there is a phone number, which is the City of Estevan phone number, 634-1800. And if you phone that number after hours, there is an emergency line there too. So again, you can reach out to a counselor, but just by dialing 634-1800, the city will look into any concerns after hours as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Broba. Councillor Clark?
Thanks, Your Worship. I just want to acknowledge the work that Gail Titzenvik, that was here tonight, that she does in the park on Main Street. She's been there probably all weekend with her and her husband taking care of that park, and she does a wonderful job. And I think that people should go and enjoy that park. It's a great downtown feature, and thanks to Gail and Kelly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. And I know Marlis Collins looks after the tree, puts a lot of her own flowers in the spring, and does all the weeding year-round, so we thank her as well. Thank you. Councillor Walliser?
Nothing tonight, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ford.
Thanks, Your Worship. I actually have two things. One is the grad committee. I know everyone has seen that the parade is going to be happening for graduation. This year, with the way grad is working, families are able to gather in groups of 30 in order to watch their child graduate, which means that they're a little bit short-handed right now for volunteers to helping get the parade running, because families are designated at certain times and whatnot to be able to go and watch their child graduate. So if anybody is willing, or any service groups are willing to go and help out that day with the parade, with helping with the floats and whatnot, I think they'd very much appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Ford. And I know you will have people come forward, because our community, there's none better for volunteers, so I'm sure you'll get your people. Thank you.
And second off is a little bit of graver nature, but I think it needs to be spoken about. This week, the news of 215 Indigenous children was discovered in a mass burial site at a former residential school in Kamloops, and this news should have brought our nation to its knees, and unfortunately, I haven't seen that yet. Instead, I'm seeing the subject being avoided, it's being whispered about, and it's being tiptoed across the country because it's hard to hear and it's hard to talk about. I think it's very important that us as a city are lowering our flags in solidarity and in memorial, but it's not enough. It's devastating news, and this is not the first crime to be heard from for residential schools, and it certainly won't be the last. There's people in our community and surrounding area who were residential school survivors and are residential school survivors. They have children and they have grandchildren that live and work in our community, and these schools created generations of traumas for families, including mine. If they're willing, I think it's important that us as a city start that conversation with the Indigenous people in the area, so that we can find a way to collaborate with them in sharing their stories, their history, and their culture, so we can continue on this path to education and reconciliation. Because where reconciliation is concerned, I don't think we've barely scratched the surface of it. There's going to be some tough questions asked, and some even tougher conversations, and some tougher answers, but I think it's very important. I think it's very important, and I think that we're at a crossroad of being able to say that we should do better, or actually just doing better. So with Council's blessing, I would kind of like to be able to spearhead this, and to be able to begin the conversation as a city towards reconciliation, and start working with the Indigenous people of our community and the area, so that they too can have a voice again. This would also include working with our third-party groups, such as the Art Gallery, the Museum, the Arts Council, to be able to find ways to display the great Indigenous history and culture that is in our community, so that it's not lost and we can educate those who maybe don't know. It's important we don't lose momentum because of this, because of the 215 that were found and the 150,000 other residential school victims and families that deserve better. And I'm more than willing to bring this up at next council meeting, and even heading a committee to begin this conversation with the key members of our community, but I just figured I'd bring it up tonight as it's very fresh, and I think it's very important that we bring up. But I do think it's important that we start that conversation again.
Absolutely, Councillor Ford, and something that thank you for that. Something we've been talking about for a while, and I know for sure I've been pushing, are the murals around the city. Maybe we could have an Indigenous mural in a very specific place that would, highlight some of that. I think it would be a great idea, because we definitely need more of them around our city.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great idea.
Okay, and we will absolutely, if you're willing to do that, any assistance we can do, we will help you, and we'll move that forward.
Great, thank you so much.
Would you like a moment's silence for this, or?
2:15, actually. They did one today at 2:15, but tomorrow at 2:15, if everybody wants to, take a second again, I think that's a good time and a good number to remember.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Cernak.
Thank you, Worship. I just had a couple inquiries into the street sweeping. There were people that noticing that the signs weren't out a day before the sweeper came down. And lo and behold, I was going to give Norm some information tomorrow, but as I'm on my way here, there's a sign at the end of my road saying the street sweeper's coming tomorrow. So I guess it is happening. So just maybe I'll send a note to Norm on a reminder on that. And the other inquiry I had was about downtown parking, and it was the 2-hour parking limit. So I guess my question is, how do we address maybe looking at extending that to maybe 3 or 4 hours? Something along that lines?
Yeah, that's a fair comment, and I know we did have the hair salons, they were given vouchers, because I don't have much hair, but I guess if you do, it can take hours in the hair salon. I didn't know this, and then they get vouchers, so, you know, I don't know if we're looking at just the hair salons, giving them more time, or?
There was actually one inquiry about a hair salon, and the other was just a normal, they were walking around downtown, went for lunch, something came back, and there was a parking ticket, and so something along that lines where they weren't trying to break the rules, but.
Okay, sure, we can revisit that. Councillor Clark?
Thanks, Your Worship. I did sit in on a BID meeting and where they were talking about some of the parking downtown, and those issues have come up. I think as part of that meeting, they were going to go back and talk to some of the downtown businesses to see how they, to see if they had a resolution for it. I know they worked with this 3-hour for the hairdressers and stuff like that, and it had some problems with it, so they were going to go back and ask what they could do to fix it. So somewhere within the Downtown Business Association and BID, I think they are trying to work that. They've kind of identified it as a problem, but no solution, but they are talking about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So perhaps we can set up some meetings with the right people and try to get resolved. Okay, thank you, Councillor Cernak. Councillor Frank?
Thanks, Your Worship. I don't have much this meeting. My wife made sure, and I'm stealing this probably from City Manager, but my wife wanted me to be very clear that Lobster Fest tickets are still for sale at A&A Jewelry, and I know Councillor Robo would like me to bring her some, and I will make sure that everybody on council has all of theirs, and maybe goes and sells 10 extra too, because that's always great to support such a great cause like Rotary. So
absolutely, and thank you and your wife for all of your hard work in those endeavors. I haven't been selling any lobsters yet. I put my name up at the mine, but I don't know, they maybe don't eat lobsters, the miners, I don't know.
I should just be clear, aside from this message, I don't do anything. My wife gets all the credit. I do very little.
Well, I know she does yeoman's work,
yes.
And we thank her for that. Okay, our IT person, James, you're sitting in the right location. Did you have anything you wanted to impart to us? Nothing? Okay. City Manager, anything you'd like to say this evening? Nothing? Okay, his lips are sealed. City Clerk?
Nothing tonight, Worship.
Okay, City Treasurer?
Nothing, Your Worship.
City Assessor?
Nothing tonight.
Nothing? Okay. Do we have a motion to move into committee then, please? Thank you. Councillor Cernak, seconded by Councillor Clark. All in favor? Carried. Thank you so much. We stand adjourned. Good evening.